They ask me sometimes what was the most beautiful thing I ever heard upon the waters. I tell them it was also the most terrible, a song that still haunts my dreams after all these years. After the creature in the deep, after we escaped with our lives, we thought we knew what the sea could do. 5 of us remained on that salvaged ghost ship, sailing waters we did not know, searching for home. It was Samuel who saved my life that night, old Samuel who had sailed these waters 40 years before. He knew things about the sea that the rest of us had only heard in stories told by drunken sailors. We thought those stories were lies meant to frighten young men, but Samuel knew they were warnings. It began on a night so still the water looked like black glass stretching to every horizon around us. No wind moved the sails, no current pushed the hull. We simply floated in perfect, unnatural stillness. A fog rolled in from nowhere, thick and white, swallowing the stars one by one until we saw nothing. I was on watch that night, standing alone at the bow, when I first heard something in the distance. It was faint at first, so faint I thought I had imagined it. A whisper of melody through the mist. Then it grew stronger, clearer, the most beautiful singing I had ever heard in all my young life. Voices like bells made of silver and moonlight, harmonies that seemed to come from everywhere at once. The song had no words I could understand, yet somehow it spoke directly to my heart and my longing. I found myself leaning over the rail, straining to hear better, wanting nothing but to find those voices. Old Samuel appeared beside me suddenly, his weathered hand gripping my shoulder hard enough to bruise. His face was pale as death in the fog, his eyes wide with a terror I had never seen in him before. He whispered one word to me, barely a breath, and that word turned my blood to ice in my veins. "Sirens," he said, and I did not understand at first what he meant by that ancient, terrible name. He dragged me away from the rail, moving faster than I had ever seen the old man move before now. The other 3 men were already at the rails, standing still as statues, faces slack and eyes empty. They were listening to the song, all of them, swaying gently like plants in an underwater current flowing. Samuel shouted at them, but they did not hear, could not hear anything but those silver voices calling. He grabbed rope and wrapped it around my chest, binding me tight to the mainmast before I could protest. I asked him what he was doing, and he said he was saving my worthless young life from the deeps. He stuffed wax from the candle stores into my ears, pressing it deep until I could hear almost nothing. The song became muffled, distant, like hearing music through thick stone walls far away from me now. Samuel did the same for himself, binding his own hands to the wheel so he could not release himself. I watched in muffled silence as the shapes appeared in the fog around our motionless, becalmed ship. They rose from the black water like dreams taking form, pale figures with hair like flowing seaweed green. Beautiful they were, so beautiful it hurt to look upon them, faces of perfect, impossible loveliness divine. But their eyes were wrong, black and empty as the deepest trenches where no light has ever reached below. Their mouths moved in song, but I heard only whispers through the wax, enough to pull but not to drown. Their lower bodies disappeared into the dark water. Fishtails glimpsed briefly when they moved and turned. More and more of them surfaced, dozens surrounding the ship, all singing that terrible, beautiful, deadly song. Murphy was the first to climb over the rail, moving slowly and deliberately like a man walking in sleep. He stepped off the ship and into the black water without a sound, without a splash, simply gone forever. I screamed against my ropes, but no sound I made could reach him, could break whatever spell held him fast. The creatures gathered where he had fallen, pale arms reaching, drawing him down into the endless black below. I saw his face for one moment beneath the surface, peaceful and smiling as he sank beyond all light and air. One by one, the others followed, climbing over the rails at different points as sirens called to each one. Each man walked to his death with the same peaceful expression, the same gentle smile of absolute contentment. They did not struggle as pale arms wrapped around them, did not fight as they were pulled beneath the waves. I fought my ropes until my wrists bled, screaming words I could not hear, begging them to stop and wake. But they could not hear me, would not hear anything ever again, lost to the song and the waiting arms below. When the last man had gone over, the creatures turned their black eyes toward me, bound and helpless there. They swam closer to the ship, pale faces tilting as they regarded me with something like curiosity or hunger. I could see their teeth then, rows of small, sharp points behind those perfect lips, still shaping silent songs. One reached up toward the rail, long fingers with webbed skin between them grasping at the wooden edge. I thought I would die there, thought they would climb aboard and take me despite the ropes and wax protection. But Samuel had done something I did not see, had cut his own palm and let blood drip into the water nearby. The creatures turned toward the blood, distracted for just a moment, long enough for the fog to shift slightly. The first light of dawn appeared on the horizon, gray and weak, but light nonetheless, breaking the endless night. The sirens hissed, a sound I heard even through the wax, like steam escaping from a cracked kettle boiling. They released the rail and sank back into the water, pale forms disappearing one by one into the lightening deep. The song faded with them, growing distant and then silent, leaving only the gentle lap of waves on hull wood. Samuel freed himself first, then came to cut my bonds with shaking hands that could barely grip the knife blade. We stood alone on the deck of our ghost ship, 2 men where 5 had stood just hours before the song began. The water around us was empty and calm, no sign that 3 men had just walked willingly to their deaths below. No bodies floated, no ripples remained. The sea had simply swallowed them whole and left nothing behind at all. Samuel would not speak of what had happened. Not that day, and not for many days after our narrow escape. When he finally did speak, he told me the old sailor's wisdom about the creatures who sing in the deep waters. They are older than ships, he said, older than men perhaps, hungry things that wear beauty like a hunter's blind. The song reaches into a man's heart and shows him everything he has ever wanted, waiting just beneath the waves. Murphy probably saw his wife who died in childbirth, the others their own dreams and loves and secret longings. The wax saved us, he said, the wax and the ropes and the dawn that came just barely in time to drive them away. I asked him how he knew about the wax and the ropes, and he said an old captain taught him 50 years past. That captain had survived the same way, tied to his own wheel while his entire crew walked singing into the sea. I was 17 years old when I learned that beauty could kill, that the sweetest song hides the sharpest teeth. We never spoke of that night to anyone, for who would believe 2 men claiming sirens took their shipmates whole? But I know what I saw in that fog, what I heard through the wax, what reached for me with webbed pale fingers. They are still out there somewhere in the deep waters, waiting in the fog, singing for the ships that pass above. Sometimes on quiet nights, I think I can still hear them, faint and far away, calling me back to finish what they started. The sea is full of hungers, some with teeth and tentacles, others with beauty and voices like silver moonlight bells. I survived them all somehow. Young Thomas, who should have died a dozen times before I ever saw the Essex whale. But survival leaves its marks upon a man, scars that do not show on skin but ache whenever the fog rolls in deep. I am old now and the sea is far behind me, yet still I stuff wax in my ears when the mist comes thick at night. Some lessons you never unlearn, some fears never fade, some songs echo forever in the halls of memory and dream.